What's up guys, welcome back. Another episode of the VY build. So, where we left this last episode, we just measured up the tail shaft, made sure that it was going to be, but make sure we could order that. We ordered that this morning. So today, while I was doing some other stuff, Rex pulled the gearbox and donk back out of the VY. Here we have it, the big 383, finally back out after all this time. In and out, in and out, in and out, but anyway, here it is. 383 is out here. So Rex is starting to go through our supercharger, and pretty much this afternoon / tonight we'll start chucking it on there and see how it looks and get some pulleys and stuff set up and see what we're working with. I think we did well with our colour scheme. I think it's going to look great with the supercharger. It's going to be a great aesthetic. Alright, so we've got to remove this heifer. Yeah, Rex just already took that off. We also noticed something that we completely spaced or just missed when we were putting this actually together, is that this steam port and this head's actually been drilled and tapped at some point. So these, did we send these heads and get them back, or are these exchange heads when we got them CNC'd?
No, we sent them.
We sent these and got them back, so we just missed the fact that someone's actually drilled and tapped that steam port, which is a pain because the regular O-ring on the steam thing doesn't fit or seal properly in there, so we're gonna have to do something about that, but at least we know about it now, because we would have started this up and it would have just leaked water from there. It would have been an absolute pain. But we have ordered actual head studs for this thing. We had ARP head bolts in it, but now that we're going to this sort of capacity of the build and how much power it's going to be making, we've ordered a set of ARP head studs, which the owner's children and their children probably will never financially recover from that decision, but basically the head's got to come off anyway. Well, they don't have to come off, but we have to put studs in the head anyway. So because this end hasn't been drilled and tapped, we're going to flip the heads over so that these are at the front, because obviously the traditional steam port design or steam line design of an LS1 doesn't fit with our supercharger because that's in the way. So they give you a new one which just runs off the front too, like a Gen 4. So that way, yeah, we can still use that on this end, which will still be fine and sealed, and we can actually just put a grub screw or something in that, and we don't have to worry about an O-ring sealing. So that's how we're going to sort that problem out. Anyway, let's get this heifer on there and see how it looks. All those bolts just slide up.
Yeah.
The injectors, no, they don't cool.
Go forward, you wait.
Almost like you need a whole different new valley plate.
It does look that way. You can't come down any lower though.
A few things to sort out. Anyway, as always, try and dummy fit early so we can come across any problems we're going to have early on so we can sort them out. And there's a few things we're going to have a chat to Harrop about what direction it's meant to sort of go, what you're meant to do about a few things.
First thing we should do is just read the instructions.
Yeah, that's true. We definitely read the instructions first, so we might do that tonight. But yeah, we'll take all these bolts out on the valley plate because they're fouling with it at the moment, so we'll fit it back on so that it can sit properly. But yeah, there's a few funny things, but anyway, obviously all things that can be sorted. Seriously awesome bit of kit. Would love to have one day, but I don't make enough money for that. So it would appear that we should read instructions as always, but there's the box here with 10 button head Allen key bolts, which, obviously we're assuming are meant to go in place of those bolts on the valley plate. But even then, they're still going to be so close, it's wild. I suppose, how thick are the gaskets, the intake gaskets for it? Or are they just O-ring seals on that?
O-rings.
On that? Oh, okay, well, there you go. Yeah, so it's still going to be freaking tight. Alright, so we've got a few ideas of what to do with these. We'll talk to a few people and see what we can work out, but tell you what, it's incredible how much lighter this setup is than an LSA blower as well. Much nicer. Alright, back here tonight, off comes the sump. Sump is coming up. Alright, so Rex has been getting this back apart. I've been doing RB things in the engine room, so I'll just check in. So this is our new crank scraper / also doubles a bit of a girdle. So the actual base plate's quite thick and ties in all the mains. And then you've got the actual crank scraper which ties in through these bolts on the edges as well. So we believe that this should help a little bit with block rigidity, as well as obviously being a proper crank scraper that is to clear a 4-inch stroke. So sort of a double whammy with this thing. So we are super stoked to actually be using this in this thing, because it was something we were a little bit worried about with the power that it's going to be making as far as just being a Gen 3 alloy block. So we reckon this is going to help it quite a bit, so we're pretty stoked with it. So we're just dummy fitting that at the moment. Just about to test fit the pickup and the sump to make sure it clears as well, but so far it clears the whole rotating assembly perfectly, which is awesome.
Yeah, this is why I wanted to test fit this, because there is going to be some clearancing required.
Yeah, right, so just fouling on that little angle there.
That bit there.
A little bit of a foul.
Yep.
Bit of a downstairs mix-up. So yeah, this is the importance of dummy fitting stuff, obviously, as we always say. But yeah, a little bit of a clash there.
I thought everything we fit was dummy fit because it's dummy fitted.
Why would you want them to know that?
Edge of the nut. Nut hole. Nut hole.
Alright, we've got a little trouble in paradise here. The Turby Woobies hitting the Scrapey Wabies. No, not doing a sealy seal.
Not too good actually, love. That's upsetting.
I remember. This is upsetting. I'm sad. I want to go home. Oh no.
Yeah, they hit.
Like not even a little bit.
Nah, it's all the way down. The whole way along. Probably the easiest solution is to do the delete.
And you run them externally?
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Should be able to block them off internally, delete those tubes and run a remote filter.
Oh, the fun of it all.
Well, this is why we dummy fit instead of just going, yeet, she'll be right, and then find this out when we're trying to put it in the car. So, yeah.
Good fun. Alright, well, that's the solution we're going to have to figure out.
I think that's going to be it.
It's freaking late. It is very late. All fits.
Looks kind of ugly, but it fits.
And it fits on the motor?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It fits on the motor.
Nice.
Like, obviously that fits there.
Yeah, well, I can see that.
But yeah, dumb it on the motor without a gasket.
Yep.
That will sit completely flush, except for the back sits up like a tiny bit. It's hitting something, probably these or something. But once the gasket's on there, it'll be perfectly fine.
Alrighty.
So that on the inside there's just enough lip. We'll just silicone that onto there.
Yep.
Do one on the outside, and that is that passage sealed.
Completely blocked.
And then we can just
so the
spin
stock filter location will be completely dry and blocked.
Yeah, we can just spin a filter on it just to make it look a bit tidier. But
yep.
And then yeah, I'll move these plugs to the inside, plug up them.
Yep.
And then use an external
fitting for there.
Off that to an external remote filter, and it'll all work.
And that'll be problem solved. So, remote filter. This fits over our tray. And Bob's your auntie. Plug that up. Ooh.
So, I got the right tap. I got the right tap.
Deletes our tubes, which is good. Man, I might even look at doing this on my drift car.
Well, that was why I thought, because we had a lot of trouble with the tubes in yours with that.
Yeah, we had to reshape them quite a bit. And what ended up happening is the sump went on, but it's actually, even though the sump's on there, it's putting a lot of pressure on them tubes.
Yeah, so that's why I thought I'd try this, because this
on
is
the
a good option in future.
I've got the airflow baffle in the sump, for those who remember me doing that. And when I put the tubes in, the baffle just sits a little bit high, so there's a lot of pressure on the tubes, which wouldn't bother me, except for the fact that these bolts and stuff, they actually bolt to the tubes from the outside. So with the sump on the engine, if I undo them, there's no way I can get them back in. I've got to pull the sump off to put pressure on the tubes to be able to get the bolts back in. It's a real pain.
We got the same one for my engine too. So
yeah, same one.
I'd just do the same thing while we're building it. So.
No. Interesting. So yeah, if when I ever finally get to finishing off the drift car, I might pull the sump back off and do this as well, considering that I've already planned to put a cooler on it, so I've already got the block and everything there. All of that stuff's already there. So. Nice. So about the only other issue I can see with this is those blocks and stuff, they're designed to go in and actually, the thread is in the tube, isn't it? Yeah.
That's for that side.
That's for that side?
Oh, yeah, they do. They
So
are.
yeah, they're designed to thread into the tube, so we're going to need to come up with some sort of solution for that. Can we tap them on the outside? I suppose then you'd have to drill out the block, wouldn't you, to fit the bigger bolt that you're going to have to tap it for. Something else to think about and sort out. Alright, so we just decided that we'll just have a through bolt like the old setup would have been. Very similar to the old setup. It's just you got to bolt it on before the sump goes on, which isn't really a big deal anyway, because as we just talked about, you pretty much have to do the same thing with the tubes anyway, because if you unbolt them from the outside while the sump's on, same thing will happen like what's gone to mine. You risk the tubes moving and not being able to get at the threads through the holes again from the outside. You also risk the gasket that's on it dropping and moving, so it's not really something that you generally do anyway. Try and unbolt it while the sump's on, so it's not really that big of a deal just to have a through bolt from this side, and just you got to tighten that up before the sump goes on, and that's that. So that's going to be more or less the setup, and these will just go to a remote filter block somewhere up the front underneath, and yeah. That's how we get around having the tubes in there and fitting it over our girdle. That's the solution. Anyway, we won't be using exactly this block. This is Rex's one for his drift car, but just using it for testing dummy fit purposes. We've ordered another block from Aeroflow to use.
She's pretty off chops.
Big old regulator. So we received a nice little box of goodies, which is pretty much the entire fuel system for the VY, just about. Yep. So yeah, all new fuel system. We're doing dash 8. It's really convenient. I'll show you next time it's on the hoist, but whoever did the fuel system last, there's like a dash 6 that goes from the tank, because obviously we know the history of the car. It used to be a pretty wild street car, drag car I should say, and it did used to have quite a significant fuel system in it before the old owners wanted to put it back on the street. They put the old fuel tank back in, but there's still a lot of remnants of the old fuel system. There's a dash 6 braided feed line that goes all the way from the fuel tank to the front, but there is a join right in front of the fuel tank underneath the car, which is just dash 6 to dash 6, which is really convenient for us to just put a surge tank in there, and then we're going to feed from the surge tank a full dash 8 all the way out to the front, and then the return from the reg, we're going to use the dash 6 that's already in the car back to the surge. So that's all going to work really well, and it's just really convenient that that's all there. So that's our new dash 8, is it? Yes, that's our new dash 8 braid there. We've also got our new flex plate, which is the SFI rated one, and all this other new stuff. Filter, nice big regulator, all the stuffs. So yeah, props,
yeah,
Aeroflow.
Just the surge on back order.
Yeah, surge tanks on back order, but yeah, it's all going to work. It's all going to be fat. Alright guys, so Rex is going to be working on the 383 here a little bit more today. I'm not going to be here. I've got to go do some running around, go do some gallivanting around the countryside. So I just thought I'd give you a quick check-in before I leave. So basically, you've seen the most important parts. We've sent the valley plate to another mate that does a lot of machining to get our strips machined into the valley plate so that the supercharger will clear it. So we'll hopefully have that back either today or tomorrow. Like I said, you've pretty much seen the most important stuff. Now that we've modified the sump, all of our fittings and stuff have arrived from Aeroflow. They're here now. So our new crank scraper, that will go on, sump will go on. We've got our new map sensor here as well. And yeah, basically this will just go together. Our new crank pulley, which is keywayed, is handy because we actually have a keywayed crank because it's aftermarket. So we're still going to pin it as well anyway, rather than just rely on the one key. We're going to pin it as well. So Rex will probably do that today, I'd assume. Yeah, a few little things like that, which I'll just show you when we get back in, and I'm back here tomorrow. But hopefully then this thing will be just about ready to go on as soon as we put our valley plate and our supercharger on it. And at the moment I just got to take the tail shaft back down. I went and picked up the tail shaft the other day. Turns out it's just a little bit too short. By a little bit I mean a lot. Yeah, just a mistake on measuring by the shafting people, but that's alright. They're always really good to us. So it's gone straight back down today. They're going to get onto that as soon as possible. So we should have that back later in the week, which means hopefully we can still get this car together later this week, which would be awesome. So anyway, I'm going to go do that, and we'll check back in when I get back. Oh, and our converter's arrived as well. So this is our new converter for this thing. What did it end up being? 3200?
Like 28-ish.
Oh, 2800.
Something like that.
Red diamond converter, a new one. Okay, back again today. Rex has had a good day on this thing, smashing it out. It's looking awesome. Changed over all the pulleys, so we're all 8 rib for this blower. He actually did get the valley plate back as well today, which is awesome. So it's back and the blower clears it. So we had to get all this milled down. Sorry guys, I can't show you better because it's already installed. Actually, we'll be able to, because we're going to take this off to actually get it in the car. So once we pull the blower off to get it in the car, I'll show you what the valley plate looks like and what we had to do to make it clear. But apart from that, our new crank scraper and windage tray / girdle sort of deal is on and installed, and the sump's on, and that's our new oil filter block there. And the owner has asked us as well just to go ahead and install the oil cooler and do it all in one hit as well. So we'll be ordering an oil cooler as well to put in the system to go with it, so that, you know, it's going to have transcool, oil cooler, remote oil filter. It's going to be all set up, all ready to go, which is awesome. So looking bloody brilliant, looking real nice. So yeah, definitely had to get that plate milled down, though. It's crazy how close it actually is. I'm super glad that we actually, it clears the head studs as well. I was a bit worried about it clearing the top studs for them from the ARP stud kit. But yeah, it certainly does, which is good. The other thing I should also add, because probably most of you have forgotten because it's been so long since we actually built this motor and since you watched the content of us building this engine, but the heads have only been decked 10 thou as well. So because we were building it at the time for Boost in Future, we didn't deck the heads a great deal. Also being a stroker as well, you know, you don't have to deck the heads much to get compression right up there. Even with these heads decked 10 thou, we worked out the compression for this thing was 10.8 to 1. So the heads haven't been decked a great amount, and the supercharger still only just clears everything. So it does sit very low. Definitely have to get those valley plates machined. But anyway, regardless, it's all going to work, which is great. So yeah, we're moving along. So we actually have to order some more pins for the crank. We don't actually have any pins in stock. So Rex has ordered them from Harrop. They should be on the way tomorrow, so we can get this crank pinned and get it installed. Bloody looking forward to this thing. It's going to be sick. All right, we are getting a bit happening on the VY. This is the remote filter block that we got from Airflow. Rex has been working on getting this. It is going to go up in here underneath where the airbox goes. So the other thing we would like to do is try and sort of cut and get some ducting happening to the airbox and remove this part of the bumper so we can get some airflow happening. A bit of cold air intake going on. So can't remember if I explained this already and filmed it, so I'm just going to go through it again. But we got onto Harrop. Harrop do an OTR for that blower for VEVF, but they don't do one for the earlier Commodores because they reckon it's too hard to keep it all under bonnet. It was just too much of a pain. They don't do it. So they don't offer any sort of OTR intake system that suits the blower on the engine in the car. So in order to keep things sort of neat and tidy, we decided what we'd probably do is try and get a stock airbox off one of our Commodores that we've got around here that was used as a donor, so that we can put the stock airbox in, keeps everything under bonnet nice and tidy and stock looking, and then obviously from underneath in the airbox we can just cut, we can just stick a K&N panel filter. It'll flow plenty enough, and yeah, from there we just want to try and get some ducting in through here and stuff. So this is going to be a little bit in the way of that, but there was nowhere else that was going to be suitable to put it. And as you can see, the filter block suits the big Z9 buoy. So this is same filter as the Falcons, like Barra's. It's a much bigger filter than the LS, the standard LS filter, which is you know, pretty cool. It's a good thing. So that's what we're doing as far as our external filter setup goes. The front of this thing is going to be pretty busy. By the time we have radiator, condenser, heat exchanger for the blower, oil cooler, as well as a big trans cooler. It's getting pretty busy up the front here, but it should be alright. We should be able to fit it all pretty well. So the rest of our stuff for the fuel system has arrived from Airflow. Big thanks to Airflow. So we've got everything in for the fuel system now. We've got our 530 LPH pump supplied by Brisbane Fuel Injection Services, so big thanks to Jay there for that one. Our tail shaft is back from Faro Shafting. It's been sorted out. Big thanks to Faro Shafting for getting straight onto that for us and getting it straight back to us. That's awesome. So pretty much everything's here to sort this car out. There's a few little fittings we have to get just to make the oil cooler and stuff work, but apart from that, this car's pretty much ready to go at this point. Just a matter of getting in and getting it put together. Oh, the other thing we're waiting on is our new belt, which is on the way as well, because they sent us the wrong belt again. Too short. So we've got that on the way from Harrop. That's on the way. Quick pin of the crank. Some extra pins for safety. Bit of insurance. Righto, boys and girls. Rex has been cracking along with the old VY while I've been busy doing super things. But he is smashing along with this. So we've got our heat exchanger out that came with the kit. He's been mounting up the pump, finding out where to mount that. Also the remote oil block that I showed you just before. But working out how we're going to mount all this and fit it all in the front end and how it's going to work. As you can see, everything's nut-certed, easy to work on, easily accessible. When we build these sorts of cars for our friends, we obviously know that we're going to be the ones that are always probably going to have to work on them and service them. So pretty much the same as any car. Most cars you build, you know you're going to have to be the one servicing them and working on them. So you always build them like they're your own. Always build the car like you're the one that's going to have to be working on it, because you thank yourself later when you are the one that has to work on it. So there's just a few little things like this that we're trying to get out of the way before we go ahead and chuck our motor and gearbox in here. So just a few things like this we knew were going to be easier while we don't have the motor and gearbox in the way. And then we're pretty much ready to start smashing this together. As you've seen, we've got everything here to just smash through, get it done, and start on our exhaust and stuff like that. So Rex has actually made this mount to mount the remote filter block. So it's actually welded post. I'm not going to touch it because it's really hot. But yeah, again, just...
Well, I'll weld them to that and I'll just do them up. I'm going to put that out from the inside of that frame rail through the front.
Yep.
And just put some, probably just some ultra black, just to glue it to the frame rail.
Yep.
And that way, that'll be enough that if we ever have to in future, you can just unbolt it from the outside,
pull
take
it off.
And as long as you don't try and push the bolts in, they'll just stay there.
Stay there.
And then obviously, because they're welded, they're not going to turn. Never mind that ugliness.
So it just goes in from here, goes into that frame rail so that we can mount it on the outside there. And we've got posts. Well, not there, but in there.
That's as good as we can do, but even then, that is still
quite low.
Well, that's still higher than the lip, and
yep.
It's higher. It is higher than that Rio, so it's going to take a pretty serious shunt in the front. You have to drive it into a ditch basically to do any damage to it. But
you have to really bin it.
Really bin it. So this is as high as I can make it and still be able to bleed it with that bleed nipple up in there.
So we debated on whether to make like a remote bleeder. We talked about it. The problem is, just for the fittings and line to make it, it adds up so quick, that stuff. You know,
the banjo bolt and stuff like that ends up being $100 just to make it. I was like, yeah.
But at that point we thought you'd have to take this bumper off every time you wanted to bleed it, but Rex realised that you can just take the grill out, which is super quick and easy, and bleed it there. So we decided to save the $100 and leave it. So that's the heat exchange in, and Rex was just going through. He moved the pump. Do you want to tell him how you moved the pump, what you did, Rex?
I'll take the bar off and I'll show you.
Take the bar off and take us through it.
Normally the way this is installed, that heat exchanger actually sits way back up here, and that bleed nipple sticks out the back side there, and this mounts up here. And it would mount up in there. It's meant to go with the power steering cooler lines, which this thing doesn't have. And that pump would normally hang off that bracket off this bolt here. And there's this little 180 tube is what would just join them. It's just like straight like that. But with that down here, it actually hangs like, you know, the bottom of the pump's about here, which is way lower than the lip, and it's just too exposed. Too exposed and too dangerous. So I made a bracket off the back of the Rio and moved the pump up to here. Plan is just to use that little 180 and extend it back to there, and I've pointed the outlet point straight back past the condenser, so the lines that come with the kit should still work to there. They might just have to shorten them up, but as you can see with the bar on, pump's way up here out of the way, whereas before it would have hung like about there. So
one little tap down there and you'd be destination fucked.
Keeps everything nice and safe. So the reason we had to do that is because we're putting the transcooler and oil cooler, and they have to go between the heat exchanger and the condenser.
We really want the exchanger at the very front.
So yeah, it was easier to put them there than to move them under the tray and stuff. So it's a little bit of mucking around, but it will work really, really well. And that pump's far enough over that we can still remove this and still build our little intake up into our air box and everything. So everything will still fit the way we expected and wanted it to work. And yeah,
pump's
still nice and low, so it's still gravity fed. It's not gonna suffer from too much suction or anything like that.
The other thing we could look into is like the headlights they use for turbo cars, where they remove one of the headlights, but just make it straight into the airbox that goes into the blower.
Yeah, well, for this thing, you could almost do that and the one in the bottom. Because as we saw from Darcy's Patrol, like a 3-inch intake on something making power is not very much. Yeah, that's what concerns me about this
having the airbox
idea. So yeah, we might end up looking into that, just making an intake there and one under the guard.
Yeah, I'm sure people make them. You see them on drag cars with turbos all the time. Yeah, like a half headlight. So.
When we tune it, what I'd like to do is put a port in the intake tube.
Yeah, see what sort of vacuum
and
comes
log
in.
it, see what if it's pulling vacuum under boost.
Yep.
That way we'll know for sure if that's a restriction or not. Just an interesting little test to do.
Good little bit of progress.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I just don't have both of the oil coolers here to do the oil cooler mounts.
All right, guys, that's probably enough footage for one episode. We're about to get stuck in this today, but you'll have to wait for that till the next episode. So thank you, as always, for watching. Smash like, smash subscribe. Next episode, we're going to be working on finally getting this thing all back together and starting to button it all up and get the fab work and stuff done so that we can actually get this thing finished, hit the key, get some power. Horsepower. So anyway, thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Peace out. See you. Bye.